Hello and welcome to another Smaulgld live stream. Tonight is December 4th, 2018. And tonight's topic, the Mueller versus Trump showdown. Now, Trump is up against a lot of different entities. He's up against Mueller. He's up against the Fed. He's up against the media. And he's up against China. But tonight we're going to focus on his battle with Robert Mueller. A lot going on in that area. We'll try to do a quick update on how we got to where we are and then what's coming next and some analysis along the way. And then we'll take how you guys see this all shaping out and how it might impact the markets. Speaking of the markets, yesterday we were talking about how the stock markets rose because of a supposed deal that would end the tariffs between China and the United States. Well, today we got a little bit of backpedaling, just a little bit. Trump came out and said that he is the tariff man, new superhero, tariff man, and that he actually believes in tariffs. And if you want to trade with the United States, the great privilege, well, then you better line up to pay your tariff. And there was also talk that a lot of the key points that made the market go up about China agreeing to a 90-day period where both parties would work out a deal. They didn't confirm that. They didn't confirm that they were going to buy any soybeans immediately or start buying energy from the United States. So, the market looked at that and said, screw this, and the Dow dropped 800 points. That's 800 points. That's over 3%. Still hanging above 25,000 to 25,027. The NASDAQ got thrashed, clobbered, down almost 4%, down 283 points to 7158. And the S&P 500 went down 3.24%, hanging above the 2,700 level. Now, what happened in gold and silver? Yesterday, we saw gold and silver went up a little bit and when the market rose. And today, which is a good sign, they also went up a little bit. Gold cracked 1230, and that was good for a $6, $7, $8 rise. Another half a point rise. I think yesterday it rose 0.66%. Today it rose 0.64%. So gold, looks like, is taking a look at this volatility in the stock market and is saying no thanks. Investors moving into what I believe is a safer haven because the dollar is fluctuating on all of this, whether there's going to be a deal, not a deal, Fed's going to raise rates, not raise rates. The dollar actually rebounded later in the day, and the dollar index is at 97. So the dollar is still getting the bulk of the safe haven bid, which is odd when the United States itself is the cause of turmoil. People put their money in dollars, which doesn't make a stitch of sense to me, but that's how things have been going. Silver. Well, silver went up a bit again today, a little bit more on a percentage basis than gold. Now, it did hit a peak in the middle of the day of about 1464, and then it fell back. It had been rising most of the day till about, well, not most of the day, it kind of shot out of the chute and then drifted downwards during the day, but did end up with a 12-cent gain and up about 0.84%. But at one point, it was up well over a percentage and a half, and it closed at around 1451. And since then, in the aftermarkets, it's down about 4 cents to 1448. Now, palladium drove itself well over 1200 and got up to 1234 at one point and closed at 1226. That is very close to gold. That hasn't happened since back around the turn of the century. Now, the gold-silver ratio went down a little bit. Yeah, it went down a little bit. Not very much. But you can see it's at 85.3 to 1. When silver spiked early in the morning, got down to about 84.7. Gold held its gains, silver lost its gains. Now we're going to have to watch this trend. This is only 2 days where there was an up day for gold and silver, but silver actually led gold higher. You don't normally see that until both metals are really in a roaring bull market, and then silver is just outpacing gold. I think the reason for these moves is silver is so low that, if it goes up a dime, it's going to be hard for gold to keep pace if the gold-silver ratio is already 85 to 1 and gold is at $1,230. But if they both continue to rise, then we might see the big move in silver that everyone's waiting for. But it usually it's usually 3 or 4 months you have to see them gaining traction, both of them, but gold generally more so. But if they both rise at this pace, that still would be a very positive sign. 2 days so far doesn't make a trend. But it is noteworthy because they both rose when the market fell dramatically and when the market rose dramatically yesterday. We'll keep an eye on it, although they're both down in the aftermarkets today. All right, now we're going to talk about Robert Mueller and Donald Trump. And we're going to put this up on the board here. Before we get into it, we all know that Robert Mueller has a investigation. He's been appointed as a special counsel to investigate Russian collusion in the 2016 election and also looking into obstruction of justice. And of course, on the other side, there is supposedly at least a Inspector General's report looking into how the FBI, and to some extent Mueller's involved with that, the FBI investigated Hillary Clinton's email, how they didn't investigate the Clinton Foundation, and then how they handled the Russian probe. Then you also have, and that is the Inspector General Horowitz. He's already released the first portion of his report relating to the Hillary Clinton email investigation and how it was handled. And he showed many examples of bias. He had many quotes in there, but he concluded that there was no bias in the execution, even though there was evidence that the participants, Strzok, Page, and the rest of them, had indicated a preference for Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. He did not release his report yet on how the FBI handled the Russian investigation, getting the FISA warrants and all things leading into the surveillance of the Trump campaign. Although he did conclude in the first part of his report on the Clinton email that FBI Director Comey made some serious errors in protocol and judgment in the way he handled that, writing an exoneration letter before she actually was interviewed, giving immunity to a number of her attorneys and key witnesses, announcing the results and making a recommendation that she should not be prosecuted, then reopening the case and holding a press release mentioning that they had found emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop, which was Huma Abedin's wife, who worked with Hillary Clinton. But the one thing that the Horowitz report left was, while he didn't see evidence of bias in the execution of the Hillary Clinton email investigation, ultimately FBI exoneration, which shouldn't happen, that should go to the Department of Justice to make that determination. But because Comey decided that then that what is her name, Lynch was conflicted, that she wouldn't make that determination, that she decided she would do whatever Comey said, so he basically made the decision. That Huber also said was not proper. And we're going to talk about Loretta Lynch a little later. But what Huber did leave open in that report was that the decision to somewhat drop off the Hillary Clinton email investigation and switch over to this Russian narrative appeared, and he wouldn't rule out that that might not be biased. Now, the reason to an objective eye you might think that was clearly in the Hillary Clinton email campaign, Hillary Clinton email case, there was a lot of evidence that she might have done something wrong. She smashed devices or instructed people to smash devices. She did not turn in or deleted 30,000 emails when they were requested. She did have a private server in her basement against protocol. She used separate different names instead of her own name. She didn't have the .gov email properly secured. She also corresponded with just about everyone, and there was also evidence that that server may have been hacked. Now, the other thing she did was she did correspond with, it was something I asked when I first heard about this, before she was even running for president, and was just people were concerned she might announce that she was running for president, is this little comment here. And this we're going to talk about a bit later, is the idea that, well, if she did all these things, as they were saying, she had this private email server, and if that is a crime and a mishandling of classified information, well, her boss would have known about it. And I had speculated back in 2015 that the boss is either responsible just because she works for him under the Latin theory of law of respondeat superior. She has to, he would be responsible. But I also thought if she had, and we did learn later, communicated with him on a non-private server with some pseudonym, well, then he definitely knew what she was doing. And he also would have mishandled potentially classified information, depending on whether she was sending him emails about her daughter's wedding and yoga plans, or whether she was actually communicating with him on official business. So this is something that has not been explored. I noted it back in 2015, and I mentioned it again. I think this was Prison Plan. I think that's Paul Joseph Watson. He was talking about something, and I admit no one's picked up on this, that if Obama used a private server with Hillary, then he also perhaps handled classified information in a reckless manner. And we may lead up to that chain, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is we've got two types of investigations going on. You got Mueller into Trump, but then you've got the Pac-Man defense. You have the Trump team looking back the other way. And curiously enough, this is just a meme that you're looking at here with a bunch of people behind bars. And the people behind bars are very interesting, because if you see who they are Obama, former Attorney General Holder, Bill Clinton, Loretta Lynch, James Comey, Clapper, Huma Abedin, Hillary Clinton, his own Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein, Podesta, and Mueller. And it says, now that Russia collusion is a proven lie, when do the trials for treason begin? It's okay for the Trump train to put that out. There's a lot of people out there like Bill Mitchell, and you have people that are pro-Trump, and you have people that are anti-Trump, and they both do their prospective pumping and trashing. But Trump decided he was going to retweet this a few days back. Now, when you retweet something, yes, I know you say it's not an authorization, it's not an endorsement. I don't mean this. It's just I thought it might be interesting. That's generally the catchphrase that people use. Yeah, I'm just putting it out there. But the fact that Trump would put this out there, he knows full well what the implication means is that he does endorse this. And he actually has Rod Rosenstein. Now, he didn't make this, but he didn't put any clarifying thing. He says, yeah, he didn't say a lot of these people should be in jail. He didn't say a lot of these people. He's got Mueller, and he's got Rosenstein in there. Now, that leads me to believe that he actually does have, as we'll find out later, he's got information on Rod Rosenstein and Mueller relating to not only how the Russian collusion investigation was handled, but about other things that they have done. So, let's now get into all those things that have been happening and find out where it's headed. Uh-oh, we got a moron here.
Presenting the distinguished international news commentator and foreign correspondent,
Smaulgld. This has been an extraordinary week in world affairs.
Now, I told Hillary Clinton that that's moronic.
That's moronic. All right. Well, before we get into our topic of this evening in detail, I want to show you a very fine photo from De La Ville. This is a new photo with a fine young black rescue dog named Buddy staring intently at his Smaulgld mug. Now that is a cute dog, isn't that? Look, he's got his dog tag there, and he's got a Smaulgld mug. And he too looks like Lucky, very protective of his mug. And I think there was a bully stick that was put in there. He might be sated already. All right, well, let's take a... We'll leave Bully up there for your enjoyment while we talk about this really interesting case of what's going on. Now, I mentioned Obama, and he's been going around acting like everything's fun. Well, not in my administration. You know, he's going around talking like he's the best. Well, listen to this.
Indicted. Nobody in my administration got indicted, which...
Let's hear that again.
Not only did I not get indicted, nobody in my administration got indicted.
Not yet.
Which, by the way, was the only administration in modern history that can be said about.
First of all, it's a very low standard. That's like saying, and I went through my life and I never got arrested. Everyone else in my family got arrested. But that may not be a very smart thing for him to be saying, because this is not over by any stretch of the imagination, as we will see. Okay, so quickly, let's go through the background and find out where we are. We already mentioned that we had an investigation into Hillary Clinton. She was exonerated, but a lot of people felt, just from a legal perspective, that she was given a tremendous pass. It wasn't just about emails. It wasn't the concept that she didn't do anything wrong and she didn't intend to do anything wrong. It's actually a lot deeper than that. Even if there wasn't a Clinton foundation, just the handling and purposefully setting up a system where you have a private server, that in itself is, and running classified information through that server, communicating via that server, that's enough to lock someone up. You don't need intent for that. That's standard issue, mishandling of classified information, top secret information. She can't argue that she didn't know any better. She was in the State Department. It wasn't like she was Donald Trump or she just strode into government. So what, me? I don't know anything. I in no ways tired. She actually knew what she was doing. And many suspect not only did she know what she was doing, she did it for a reason. So she can funnel money through the Clinton Foundation, and she can correspond with foreign leaders, get their kickbacks, and we'll never know because we haven't seen those emails, unless, of course, those emails were captured by the NSA. Okay, so how does that happen? One thing I understand about the NSA, and this is very disturbing in all instances, but in this instance it may help recapture those emails, is most people think when you send an email, okay, it gets created and it gets put in your sent box, and then it goes across the wire and it makes it to the recipient's box. Now, it's possible you say, okay, well, we know that if Hillary Clinton knows who she sent it to, and or she sent it to people overseas that'll never turn up. But let's say she sent it to you. You get the email, and she tells you when you get it to delete it, and you delete it, and then you delete it from your outbox, and then you wipe your hard drive, and then you smash your hard drive. Well, as far as you're concerned, you don't have it anymore. And then she does the same on her side, and she thinks, okay, well, that email never happened. And since it was only run through one private server, there's not backups, there's nothing else, it's not in a system, you would think that that would be one way of making sure that those emails were gone forever. However, from what I understand, the NSA has the capability to do is to capture emails as they're being sent and then to store them in that sense, in which case, no matter what you do on your end or the recipient does on their end, once the person hits send, then the NSA has captured that email. So it's possible that those emails exist, and if they do exist and Trump has access to them, he knows exactly what's in those emails. Now let's take a look at some of the things that he has been saying, which leads me to believe, and you don't have to be QAnon or Q my mom or QAnon to even come up with these ideas to understand what's going on, because there's enough information out there in the public where you can see that clearly Trump says something means he knows something. He doesn't just say something for the sake of saying it. And that's why I think showing all those people in the jail cells and using the word treason means he must know something, or he's a complete moron and he's going down and he just figures he'll have his fun before he gets taken down. I don't think that's the case because we haven't seen anything that they have. For the most part, what the Mueller team has found has gotten people for lying to them, not about underlying crimes, but about other things. So if you look at Manafort, he's in trouble. He's been indicted for dealings that he did in Ukraine, for failing to register as a foreign private agent, which many, like Podesta's brother, didn't do that either, for lying on a loan application, misstating his assets, not reporting foreign bank accounts. Okay, he's a bad guy, he's a crooked guy, but that has nothing to do with the underlying reason why Mueller was appointed. Same thing with Flynn. Flynn apparently was pled to lying to the FBI about not Russian collusion, but about conversations he had with Russians during a transition period. And apparently he made whatever statements he made. He didn't even realize he was being investigated. He thought it was part of the transition. But in any event, these people are being indicted, and they're trying to make this scene that, well, we've got all these indictments. See, there must be something there. No, I mean, if you want to get people on process crimes and indict them for lying to you, there's the old perjury trap, which a lot of people think that that's what's happening here. But the most outrageous thing that happened was they raided President Trump's own lawyer, Cohen, figuring, well, we'll just go through all of his stuff, we'll find something, and if we find out he's done anything wrong, we can hold that over his head and get him to say stuff about Trump. And lo and behold, what do they find when they raid him? That the guy in his own life is somewhat of a crook. He had been not paying taxes on a fleet of taxi medallions he had. I think he did the same thing Manafort did. He made up stuff for loan applications. He had some tax issues. So then they tell him, oh, look at all this we have on you. You better tell us something that we want to hear about Trump. And then he says, well, yeah. How about that what I told Congress that Trump had was doing dealings for a hotel in Russia in January. How about I tell you I lied about that? And he was actually still talking about that in June. How's that sound? Now, that's kind of shady because, first of all, it doesn't matter whether he had, as a legal matter, it doesn't matter whether he was having the conversations in January or June. He never did the deal. It may look like he's got poor judgment. He's not a good guy. Well, he's still doing his business while he's running for president. But there's nothing wrong. There's nothing illegal about that. What's strange is that Cohen is in a position where he has to admit lying to Congress, which he's in trouble for. And then, as we'll see with Jerome Corsi, then when you lie back to the prosecutor, now you're in double problems, because now he has to say, well, I've got you for lying now because you didn't tell me that. And the only way we're going to let you off a bit is if we're not going to charge you for these other things if you tell me what I want to hear. And that appears to be what a lot of the people under investigation are now saying. And now you're reduced to people like Roger Stone and Jerome Corsi. Jerome Corsi is a guy who wrote the birther book. I think it was called Where's the Birth Certificate? And Jerome Corsi is not in the Trump campaign. I think Roger Stone is tangentially related to the Trump campaign. What they try to get Jerome Corsi on is to say, because they found that he had mentioned something that looked like he had predicted the WikiLeaks drops. He claims he just pieced together from publicly available information that somehow he got that information, then he transferred it over to Roger Stone, who then transferred it to Trump, and that would show you Russian collusion. He says that's not the case, and he's actually suing Mueller for prosecutory misfeasance. How far I'll get with that. But the point being is that they're basically, Mueller is putting the screws now on enough people to try to get them to say something that'll prove this Russian collusion. Otherwise, he's going to be left with writing a report that's basically going to show that Trump is surrounded by a bunch of scoundrels, a bunch of criminals, a bunch of people that I had to indict, and that Trump was also involved in a lot of questionable activity if it wasn't illegal. You know, this man isn't fit to be president, that type of stuff. How about you go ahead and impeach him? Because I think that's where Mueller's headed. And I think where Trump is headed is, and he pretty much mentioned this when he heard that the Democrats were going to, not indict him, but subpoena him on this and that and investigate him and his taxes. He basically said, okay, we can do the same thing. And I think he already doesn't even have to subpoena stuff because he has a lot of information on how the probe was originally conducted. He knows, for example, what Mike Rogers told him, the former head of the NSA, about how many were querying the database. And he also knows about, I would imagine by now, what's in the FISA warrants. He knows, he's seen all of the emails probably that are important that have been handed over to the congressional committees relating to how the FBI dealt with these investigations. He probably knows exactly what Adam Schiff has done in terms of his own leaking. He's probably well aware of the legality of a case against Comey for his leaking, which he admitted to Congress he had done. So I think that Trump is also well aware of the connections of Mueller to the Uranium One affair, in which the United States, through the Clinton State Department, handed over a good portion of the United States uranium, and Bill Clinton got $500,000 to speak to some people in Russia. So I'm sure he's well aware of all the things that the other side has done, and you basically have this battle now as to who is going to knock the other one out first. Now, Trump, I believe, was hampered in that he had Attorney General Sessions who did not look into these things and basically step back, allowed Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein to appoint a special counsel to be responsible for him, which is odd that Sessions recused himself in that because he had supposedly talked to a couple of Russians during the Republican National Convention, but Rod Rosenstein himself he signed one of the FISA warrants, which meant that he is involved in what Mueller is investigating, i.e. surveilling Trump for the purposes of finding out Russian collusion. And he wrote a memo recommending Trump fire Comey. And that's the other thing that he supposedly put in his authorization note to Mueller to investigate was obstruction of justice. And part of that obstruction of justice would be Trump firing Comey. But Trump, in part, fired Comey because of the memo that Rosenstein wrote. So that would make Rosenstein a witness and a participant in, possibly even be responsible for that obstruction of justice. So he could possibly even be not just a witness, but a defendant in the Attorney General, in the special counsel's case, because he was involved in the obstruction of justice. So it doesn't make any sense that he's involved in this at all. That's how crazy the whole thing is. But let's see what Trump has been saying. And these give you clues. You don't need QAnon or Q My Mom to look at these things, to understand what's going on. So back on the 27th, let's take a look at when he's been saying this stuff all along, but he stepped it up recently, and he did publish that the people behind bars. Right, this one he says, the fake news media builds Bob Mueller up as a saint, when he is the exact opposite. Now, exact opposite of a saint is what? Devil. He's not just saying he's not a good guy. He's got him behind bars. He's retweeting a tweet with him behind bars. And he's saying he's the exact opposite of his saying. He is doing tremendous, all caps, damage to our criminal justice system where he's only looking at one side and not the other. Implication, Trump is looking at the other side. Trump is aware of the other side. And remember, what other side are we talking about? He's not talking about Republicans versus Democrats. He's talking about you're supposedly looking into me on the one side relating to Russian collusion, but what about the Russian collusion on the other side? Heroes will come of this, and it won't be Mueller and his. Now, when he says heroes will come of this, he already knows what witnesses are. I imagine what witnesses he has, who's spoken to him, what documents he has. He knows far more than we know in any of this. So when I play this, he's playing 4D chess. No, he's not. He's playing checkers when he already has a lot of kings. I think he knows exactly what's going on. But let's see some of the other things he's said. We're going to finish off what he was saying there. He says, Mueller and his terrible gang of angry Democrats. And that's not the first time he's used that expression. Look at their past. Look where they come from. The $30 million witch hunt continues, and they've got nothing but ruined lives. Where's the server? Now, he's referring to that is not Hillary Clinton's server, but the DNC server, which indicates that when they looked at the Hillary Clinton email, whether she had done anything wrong, they never viewed the DNC server that supposedly was hacked, and WikiLeaks got a lot of that stuff as well as from Podesta. The FBI never ever asked to see the server so they can examine it for evidence of how it might have been hacked, who might have hacked it. Instead, they took the word of the IT firm that the DNC had hired that, yeah, it was hacked. It was hacked by Russians. Now, that's not... You're supposed to be the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Even if you believe the IT firm, you still impound the server and you make your own forensic analysis, and maybe you do that in connection with their IT people. That never happened. Then he says, let these terrible people go back to the Clinton Foundation and Justice Department. Now, why is he mentioning the Clinton Foundation? Well, it's all connected. There's two parts. Remember, the first part of Horowitz's report was about Hillary Clinton email handling of classified information, and which wasn't included in the Horowitz report was because it was dropped. They never even looked into the Hillary Clinton Foundation investigation at all. And there was a lot of smoke there, wondering how all that money came in, where it went to, and none of that was ever investigated. They started an investigation and it got shut. Now, apparently, there's this guy, Huber, and he's looking into that. We're going to get to that in a minute. He was appointed by Sessions. Now, remember, Horowitz is an inspector general. He can't subpoena people. He can't arrest people. He can't bring charges. And Huber's in the same situation. He's just a guy out in... he's not a special counsel, although he is a U.S. attorney. He's out, I think, in Salt Lake City, Utah, and he supposedly is looking into the Clinton Foundation as well. So Trump clearly looks like he's going to tie the Hillary Clinton email investigation, how that was mishandled, and the Clinton Foundation, and he's identified that he thinks the Clintons are crooks, and by that picture of the people in jail, some people at the Justice Department are all crooks, and that's why he's got justice in brackets there. Now, what else did he say on the same day? Was this. The phony witch hunt continues, but Mueller and his gang of angry Democrats are looking at one side, not the other. Again, he says, looking at one side, not the other. Wait till it comes out. Why is it going to come out? How does he know it's going to come out? Well, he does know how horribly and viciously they are treating people, ruining lives for them, refusing to lie. Mueller is a conflicted prosecutor gone rogue. Now, where does he get that Mueller is conflicted? We'll see when we talk about Uranium One. We'll talk about Mueller being best buddies with Comey. So Trump is clearly signaling here that he thinks, or he knows, what's going to come out, and he's made these hints before. But he doesn't just drop hints, he continues. So what he says the next day, on the 28th of November, while the disgusting fake news, and that's nothing new, that he says it all the time, is doing everything within their power not to report it that way, at least 3 major players are intimating that angry Mueller gang of Dems is viciously telling witnesses to lie about facts and they will get relief. This is our Joseph McCarthy era. Now, why is he pointing out that the fake news is not reporting it this way or not even mentioning it? One of the things that's just very clear is that the mainstream media has been very adamant to keep, and very diligent in keeping the public up to date on any little thing that the Mueller team may find, may intimate, and then they blow it out of all proportion. This is it. This is the smoking gun. Trump's going down, and so on. Well, what they never report on, even though Trump tweets about it, is the concept that there might have been malfeasance on the other side. There might be malfeasance in the appointment of Mueller. There might be malfeasance in the surveillance of the Trump campaign, in the procuring of the FISA warrants to surveil the Trump team, the way they might have worked to exonerate Hillary Clinton, and none of that is being discussed at all. They don't talk about what's in the Steele dossier. They were happy to talk about what's in the Steele dossier just to get it out there so that they can make the salacious accusations about the hookers and peeing on the bed in Moscow while Trump was there. And they did all that just to get that into the public, so that the way they got into the public was Clapper sent Comey to go talk to Trump about it, to let him know that the existence of this dossier, even though he knew it was fake and unverified, so that the story could be, Comey told the president about this, well, now it's open game and now we can talk about it. But you see what's happening is that the way that the FBI, or the old FBI, always worked with the mainstream media in order to leak information to the Washington Post, the New York Times. Whenever there's a leak, it comes through one of those two entities, and then CNN, BuzzFeed, and the others pick up on it, and they already have the narrative that goes with it. And we're going to get to a second what he's talking about, major players intimating about being encouraging people to lie and they'll get relief. We're going to get to Jerome Corsi in a second. But then the next day, he's not done yet. Trump is still going on. This is before Bush died, so he's kind of stopped with this. He's been focused on the trade deal. But on the 29th, he says, still, did you ever see an investigation more in search of a crime? At the same time, Mueller and the angry Democrats aren't even looking at the atrocious and perhaps subversive crimes that were committed by crooked Hillary Clinton and the Democrats, a total disgrace. So again, he's foreshadowing, I believe, what Hillary Clinton did, the Democratic Party did, relating to perhaps colluding with Russia to hand over the uranium. Now, Bob Mueller's involved in that as well. So none of this is, he doesn't tweet for no purpose. People think that he's just lost it, that he wakes up, drooling in his cereal and decides he's going to say a bunch of stupid stuff that he might have read online the night before. It does appear that way, but it seems to be very well timed to why he says these things, and as things unfold, we will learn more. Now, what happened the other day? Let's see if there's any more Trump tweets. Yes. So Cohen, we mentioned, had been his house, office, hotel room was raided, and they found a lot of stuff on him, and now he's screwed. And they're trying to get him to say stuff, and he's claimed he's going to cooperate. And because he's cooperating, Trump is now saying, and he's still going to have prison time, he says he's asking for no prison time, and he says, you mean he could do all these terrible, unrelated things to Trump that have to do with fraud, big loans, taxis, and he's referring to the stuff that he actually pled guilty to, that they actually found by raiding his house, and not serve a long prison term. He makes up great stories to get a great already reduced deal for himself and his wife and father-in-law, who has money, off scot-free. He lied for this outcome and should, in my opinion, serve a full and complete sentence. Okay, so now he's basically, if he realizes that Cohen has done all these things, which Trump probably would have no way of knowing that his lawyer was a crook, he's saying that why should he get off from having done those just in exchange to make up stuff about him? At least that's the point of view he's taking. Now, before we get into the most recent events, there were other very recent events with this guy we mentioned, Jerome Corsi. He says they try to make him say that he had some connection with Assange, and then he got documents handed him to Stone. He says he's not going to say that. And now Mueller has got him up on some type of charges. He's going to indict him, I think, for lying, just like he had Flynn for lying, Cohen for lying, Papadopoulos. And then they decide they're going to go after this guy Roger Stone, who's like a political gadfly dating back to the Nixon period. And he had not yet been contacted by Mueller, but he knows that his name is coming up because Corsi he's been mentioned in connection with Corsi, and he says, look, I'm not going to turn on Trump. I haven't done anything, so I'm not going to make up a story. And then Trump catches wind of that, and he says, I will never testify against Trump. This statement was recently made by Roger Stone, essentially stating that he will not be forced by a rogue and out-of-control prosecutor. I mean, the words he uses against Mueller are astounding. When Nixon was being investigated by a special counsel, I think it was Archibald Cox, he might have behind closed doors been calling the guy bad names, but he wasn't publicly giving statements about a rogue and you know, Trump has basically called this guy everything under the sun. He's called him the devil. He said he's the exact opposite of a saint. He's called him conflicted. He says he's hired angry Democrats. He's called him rogue more than a couple of times. And he's saying that not only is he this bad guy, he's saying that he's doing illegal and unethical things in this instance by trying to make up lies and stories and have his witnesses make up lies and stories. And then he says, Ray Stone, nice to know some people still have guts. So you can see this thing is really building with Mueller trying to get something, if not a very bad impression of Trump, by having associates of his plead guilty. You know, in the public's eye, you just say, well, these people are on Trump, they've been indicted, they're guilty, there must be something there. No, maybe not. I mean, what's there is that he decided to go after 15, 20 Trump associates and find stuff on them and indict them for it. And if he couldn't find anything to indict them for it, he managed to get them to lie to them, and then he indicted them for perjury or for lying. So that's Stone. Corsi, it seems that that's their last hope for this Russian collusion, other than this, when the meeting took place between this Russian project, between the Trump organization in Russia, and whether that was in January, as Cohen told Congress, or whether it's actually in June. But again, there's no crime there. There's no collusion. And since the deal didn't happen, there's nothing they could hold over his head and say, well, you now have this big investment in Russia. It may have looked like quid pro quo, how they helped you, but there is no evidence because the deal didn't get done. So whether it didn't happen in January or it didn't happen in June, that only matters really to Cohen as to whether he was lying, and he's already said he was lying. He says, no, I told Congress January, but it was June. How's that, boss? How's that, Mueller? Does that work for you? It really doesn't, because it doesn't really get Mueller what he needs. It gets him what he needs to make Trump look bad, but if you can't believe Cohen, then he doesn't really look that bad at all. All right, so what's coming up next is Comey is going to meet with, before we get to that, there was a raid. This is a new one. Two new pieces of information. There was a raid on a whistleblower. by the FBI who had handed over information about, I think it was the Clinton Foundation. And you would think, well, if he's already turned over evidence to the FBI, why are they raiding him? And I listened, I think it was Conservative Treehouse and Dan Bongino. They had these different theories. And I had suggested this. And then Bongino picked up on it the next, yesterday. I said, is it possible that this whistleblower was holding on to even more devastating material that they had been holding on to for some type of leverage? Meaning that the whistleblower may, and this person had top security clearance. This is, I don't know who it is, but that this person had given over information that was damaging, but maybe was holding back the even more devastating stuff, and maybe is, playing both sides of the fence, and that was discussed on Bongino's show yesterday. And according to, I think it was Goodlatte, he wanted to know from Uber what's going on with this, because this seems very strange that you have a whistleblower. And the lawyer for the whistleblower wasn't happy about that he had been raided. So, again, we don't know where that's leading, but I would think it has something to do with either there certainly is more investigation going on into the Clinton Foundation. That was either a friendly raid wanting to get more information, or, which I don't believe, that the FBI was, rogue FBI agents were still trying to, I don't know what, they destroy evidence or something like that. That wouldn't make any sense because they'd be found out. But you never know. It could be a last-ditch effort to try to destroy that. All right. So those are the things that have happened, the most recent things that have happened. But now we got to find out what's going to happen. Oh, before we do, I forgot to mention this at the start of the show. Remember yesterday we were talking about how the mainstream media is now shilling for China and end of dollar hegemony, and we showed a Bloomberg article and some other article. Look at this one. This is the New York Times shilling for China. That is all you need to know. They did this big report. China's rules. They didn't like the West's playbook, so they wrote their own. The land that failed. I mean, this is all, there's praising China and Sun Tzu. The West was sure the Chinese approach would not work. It just had to wait. It's still waiting. I mean, this is the whole gold pumper narrative. So I hope they're happy. They now have full mainstream media. They were early, right? They have full mainstream media agreement with them that it's end of dollar hegemony. And my theory is the only reason they're doing this is they hate Donald Trump and they want to say China good, Orange Man bad. Well, I got to see Buddy again. There you go. Okay. So what's coming up? Well, Comey is, and this is ridiculous because Republicans had the House for the last 2 years. They wait till the very end when they can run the clock out. And they decide, oh, yeah, it'd be a good idea if we talk to Comey, Loretta Lynch about all this stuff that happened during the investigation of Clinton's email investigation. So Comey then decides that he doesn't want to go unless he can go in public and, I guess, grandstand on TV, pontificate about the honor of the FBI and ethics and maybe write another book about it. And the Republicans say, no, you got to meet behind closed doors because we don't want you pulling the old, I'd like to discuss that, but I can't do that in an open setting. Okay, then let's close the doors and let's go talk to you. Now, he wanted to have it, and so he tried to sue to quash the subpoena, and then he realized that's pretty stupid. That's not going to work. So he withdrew that, and they agreed to meet behind, I think this is actually how it should be. Should have just gone with this in the first place, to meet behind closed doors. I think they're going to videotape it, but if not, at least there's going to be a transcript. And then they'll release the transcript within 24 hours with the redacted stuff. They'll redact the stuff. I guess they'll have to. Now, he won't have to agree what gets redacted. He doesn't get it. He doesn't get to say, well, no, don't mention that. That's classified. No, and now it's up to the committee to decide what they think is he doesn't work there anymore. He's just a witness. But I think that's a good compromise, probably just the way it should go in the first place. And then Loretta Lynch will be going later in the week. Now, the other things that are coming up is Horowitz has yet to release his second half of the report on Russian collusion. And there we're going to see his investigation into, just as we saw how he felt there were errors made in the handling of the Clinton email investigation, I'm sure we'll find that errors might have been made in the way that the Russian investigation was handled. And then we've got the Uber report coming up. We don't know what's going to be in that. There's a lot of talk with thousands of sealed indictments. Actually, he is an attorney general. We had this recent raid on the whistleblower relating to the Clinton Foundation. So you've got those things coming up. And then you have in January, you have a new attorney general who Trump will appoint. We don't know who he's going to appoint, but chances are he's going to get appointed. He's going to get confirmed by the Senate, because the Senate now is 53-47 Republican, even with Romney, Murkowski, and Collins. These are Republicans that they're known to kind of go the other way, or even Sass is another one. But you still have Pence to break the tie. And I doubt they would reject one of his own. But you never know. Depends on who he nominates. But it'll be interesting to see who he nominates. And I think then that's when you'll see everybody is locked and loaded for the new year. You'll have the new Democratic Congress, their new subpoena power. They're going to be going after Trump. Mueller will probably release his report between now and then. Should have a lot of stuff in there, very negative stuff on Trump. Maybe not criminal, but certainly negative. Set the tone. And then Trump has been holding off, and he finally told, I forgot who he told, but he said the reason he hasn't declassified the documents is he says he doesn't want it to be old news. He's holding on to it strategically, so I would imagine that he probably wants to have a new attorney general. He probably wants to declassify the documents if necessary, and then instruct his new attorney general to do whatever needs to be done on the basis of what he declassifies. I probably missed a lot there, but that's enough for you to digest. Let's see what you guys have been saying, thinking, or chatting amongst yourselves. We are going to leave up Buddy there. That's Dog of the Night. Be nice to have a new dog every night. Picture of Smaulgld mugs with dogs. We do have others. I'm not going to show them to you tonight. Maybe we'll do a montage of, it's not just Lucky and Buddy. I've got a few others as well. All right, let's see what we got over here. All right. Outside ringing the salvation bell, says Mint Mark. So far only fiat in the bucket, no sound money. All right, let's see. Mate says, I read that the carbon tax is off, so the LJACs will be quiet for a few months. The interesting thing about the carbon tax, it was never, ever, ever portrayed in the media as the people in France were protesting the carbon tax, or Macron. It was, well, they're protesting higher fuel prices. Well, anyone's paying any attention to the fuel prices are going down. What they're protesting was the added tax, the carbon tax, and Macron. They don't want to make it seem like people are unhappy with this new, this Macron guy and carbon taxes, because this also is a middle class protest, supposedly. These yellow jackets are people, I was wondering where they came from. Like, did everyone go out and buy these jackets? No, in France you have to have a jacket as a, for security in case you have an accident and you have to get out of your vehicle so that when the police come, they can see where you are. So they have these jackets. So basically anyone who has these jackets or has them has to have some money, because they own a car. And the only reason they have these jackets is because they own a car and they're mandated to have these jackets. Fun fact there. De La Ville says Macron popularity under 26%. Now, that's another point you never hear. They make it sound like France is, doing really well, and Macron, he showed Trump at G7, and so did Merkel, and she's the leader of the free world. She's gotten booted out. Macron is highly unpopular. Same thing in England. Trump is much more popular in the United States than he's given credit for. He's like at between 43 and 51% approval rating. You would think that he'd have like Macron-style ratings, and he doesn't. Or it's unbelievable how they try to frame how, yes, Trump is unpopular. There is, if you look at the Rasmussen reports, they do. I really like that report because it says, it doesn't just say 51, 48 or whatever the number is. It tells you how many strongly approve and how many strongly disapprove. And I think strongly approve and strongly disapprove is very telling. It shows the level of support. Trump has anywhere between 33 and 40% strongly approve, and 36 and 42% strongly disapprove. Now, Obama only had, at the most, like 25% strongly approve, and he always had about 40-some-odd% strongly disapprove. So it's very interesting that they made Obama out to be wildly popular, Trump to be wildly unpopular, when actually Trump is more wildly popular than Obama and is about as strongly unpopular as Obama. So Macron is definitely not popular. Okay, so Mate thinks that Yellow Jacket is going to be a worldwide phenomenon. Interesting. Tariff Man is a game changer. That's a great, he called himself Tariff Man. First mugshot for your dog, said De La Ville. Oh, Anne Holloman is here again tonight, but she retracted a comment, so I can't comment on it. Pablo Pena says, Lucian makes Smaulgld Yellow Jackets for a city, Nick. Yeah, okay. All right, De La Ville asks, how was the classified information transferred from a secure government server to her server? It's unbelievable. How Comey with a straight face said no reasonable prosecutor would bring a case, and Obama said she didn't mean to do anything wrong. That's got nothing to do with it. The idea that you would even do that, it's on its face a violation. And it's just, it boggles the mind to think that they've managed to portray it as, oh, it's just her emails. Why does everybody make a big deal out of it? Just her emails. It's not her emails. She actually had intent. By setting up the server, she had the explicit intent not to have it on the government servers. And then she said she did it for convenience. I'm sorry. That's like the president saying, yeah, I thought it'd be easier if I just get out myself and go get some McDonald's without having the Secret Service detail. I'm sorry, you don't get convenience when you are the Secretary of State. It's security over convenience. See, it's paramount that you don't get to just say, well, I thought it'd be easier if I had the server in my basement so I could just send stuff out whenever I felt like it on different devices. John Brennan is missing from the meme. Yes. Brennan, you think he's at the top? I don't remember. I did make that thought myself, that I didn't remember seeing him on there. And again, Trump didn't make the thing. You see him at the top? No, I don't see him at the top. He's not on there. Yeah, he's the one guy you would think. I mean, Strzok, Page, there's others not on there, but he would be the main guy. He's a big critic of Trump. McCanning, a good start, but Ed Brennan, Schiff, and some mainstream propaganda puppets. Rod Panord, Mueller was made FBI director 2 weeks before 9/11. Why does it seem he never put in half as much work trying to get to the bottom as I was trying to get Trump? Well, that's an interesting thing, is because what he's trying to get Trump on now, he's not even trying to get Trump, it doesn't seem like, on Russian collusion or obstruction of justice. Trump already handed in his written testimony on Russian collusion. There doesn't appear to be any, which is interesting because everybody says, yeah, but what about the indictments? Yeah, the indictments don't have anything to do with Russian collusion. And in fact, it's just like with the Hillary Clinton email investigation. There's plenty of evidence there that she committed a crime, just as there's plenty of evidence that there was Russian collusion between the Obama administration and the Uranium One deal, in which Mueller was part of. All right, why is Julian Assange taking asylum in Ecuador? How is he correlated? The idea is that Assange is the one through WikiLeaks that got the information. They say maybe he got it from Russia, and released the Podesta emails and the DNC emails. That's how he's related, and that somehow Corsi was like, got them directly from him, knew they were coming out, handed them over to Stone. It doesn't make any sense. It's the same thing when they try to say that WikiLeaks coordinated with Donald Trump Jr. No, they sent him an email 10 days after they were out. I don't see how Jerome Corsi has any link to getting these emails. But Canning, it's coming for, oh, bummer. Okay. The Q thing is questionable. And I say so too. The Q thing is questionable because anything that Q has said, I could have imagined. Not because I'm some type of insightful person. It's just there's a lot of publicly available information out there. And then, obviously, with the publicly available information, you can do your own speculation. He has speculated about stuff like Red October and Sessions. It's all part of the plan. And Sessions got fired, so Sessions not part of any plan. So either Q is just the guy who has no real inside information, is putting the pieces together and throwing it out there as a lark, or he's throwing it out there for the purpose of putting people off the trail. And one of my thoughts was trust the plan. That's the perfect thing your opponents want you to do, is to do nothing. Think that it's all being taken care of. Don't worry about it. Yeah, don't think that Sessions is just a useless Keebler elf. He actually is working behind the scenes. He's doing sealed indictments, and then he's going to come roaring back after the election. I got fired. Oh, this whole thing between Trump and Sessions yelling at each other, it's just theater. That's the plays, the thing. No, it's not. Q got it wrong because perhaps Q doesn't have inside information. Q's just an observer just like everybody else. And just like everybody else, you make predictions, they're wrong. But because anybody, you see this in the gold and silver, you make one right prediction, or you just make the same wrong prediction for 20 years, and somehow people think they want to listen to what you have to say. Greatest wealth transfer in history. All right. Philip Killian, always good to hear Lewis even-keeled perspective on things. Well, thank you. I look at this, and the reason and it'll come across, I am trying to be even-keeled on this. It'll come across that I am favoring the Trump side, and I am. And the reason for that is I've looked at both sides of this, and the one thing I see on the mainstream media news, they never report that there might be something on the other side. Even when Trump mentions it, they don't look into it. They don't investigate it. They pretty much ignore him when he acts like that there's malfeasance on the other side. They don't want to hear it. They don't want to say it. And they just want to go one direction. So what I do is I look at what the mainstream media, with the Mueller team, with the people that are yelling and screaming against Trump saying, and I analyze it. And then I say, okay, so whether there was a meeting in January or June, that doesn't show Russian collusion. I thought we were talking about Russian collusion. You may get mad. You may think he's a scoundrel for doing it. You may question his motives. Okay, but that's not a crime. And then I listen to some of the stuff, and I see how the things that they did in the Clinton Foundation, supposedly, just looking at how they handled the investigation into her emails when she was an open and shut case, as far as I could tell, for mishandling classified information. Never ever questioning Obama about this. Her boss, who presumably allowed her to have this server and communicated with her on it, just shows to me that they're in the tank. I don't know how else to... Either they're in the tank or they're totally incompetent for not questioning Obama. And then, of course, that's how they handled the Russians thing. And again, you don't see any analysis, special reports from Washington Post or Wall Street Journal or New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. They don't investigate this stuff. Now, granted, on the other side, all Fox News does is put out the other side, and they do a thorough job on that. But then they don't give any credibility that Trump might have done anything wrong. But they do at least mention that the other side has these points on their side. Okay, you can slice and dice the cute things in many ways with aquaculture. And to me, it really doesn't matter. I almost didn't do it. I only did one YouTube on Q. I really don't care if he's real or not. It doesn't matter to me because Q can be proven correct. But I would say, so would I, because I've been saying for over a year that there's this Pac-Man defense and there's all these other things happening behind the scenes. I just don't claim to know on the inside. So it doesn't really matter to me whether Q is right or not. I was just concerned that people, they take it to a faith level, which I think is dangerous. Trust the plan. Flynn is an American hero. Okay. Well, the other thing I forgot to mention, he's already thrown out that someone asked him directly, and he said, would he pardon Manafort? And he said yes. I'd imagine he'd pardon Flynn too. Okay, McCanning says, the emails go through hops through the system and routers, and for sure the NSA has cloning servers that are part of the trace route hops. Yes, if you ever done a trace route, you go into your DOS, you can see it. It leaves your computer. This is what happens to me all the time. If my if I can't reach my website, we have to see whether it's a Comcast issue, and you see where it hops. NSA can easily snag that traffic at any point there. That's right, McManning. The bread and circuses. Max Strong says an attorney being a crook? No way. McCanning, in other words, Coney, a typical attorney, pond scums. Clearly. I mean, unbelievable. All right. All dogs go to heaven. Aquaculture, I was hoping to hear about the China tariffs and the drop in the S&P 500. I did mention it when we started off. I was mentioning to Mate earlier, before the show, there's only so much I can cover part-time. So if I'm going to do a story, I have to cover the story. He mentioned we have the what's happening with the interest rates, and I just didn't mention that yet. You got the inverted yield curve. You have this big drop in the stock market. I did mention it, but I didn't get into much detail. Yep, Mueller just trying to keep himself from being investigated for Uranium One. Absolutely. And I didn't even get into all the ins and outs of Uranium One. Mueller, exactly, Mueller delivered the yellow cake sample. Yes. I mean, it's unbelievable the incestuous behavior of this group that you see on the screen here. All committed certain... this guy here, Holder, he was in contempt of Congress. No one in my administration was indicted. And you got Bill Clinton here. I never said that. Lay off of my wife. I didn't have sex with that woman, Monica Lewinsky. Yeah, he got debarred for lying. He did get impeached. He didn't get convicted, but definitely some bad stuff going on. And in the counter, oh, Trump's a bad guy. Yeah, who said he's a good guy? That's not the point. The point is, what has he done that's bad as president? That policy. What crime has he committed? He may, and that's why they want his tax returns. Guarantee he's done something. He's got money they can't explain. He paid in expenses. He's under audit. Who knows? But that doesn't, again, that's the childish argument. That's the two wrongs don't make a right. All right, the government personnel is threatened by Trump's attention to draining the bad guys. Well, that's definitely true. Huber and Horowitz, that's right. Huber is the attorney out in Salt Lake City, and Horowitz is the inspector general. Clinton's so far off the hook. That is true. December 7th, Pearl Harbor anniversary. Yeah, Aquaculture says apparently there are sealed indictments getting prepared, so it's a page how to Putin use the KGB against the Russian oligarchs. Release the Kraken and the dogs. Well, Seth is here. All right, let's see. Seth is here. Q may be a psyop for the bad guys, the bogeyman of the bogeyman, the psychological warfare. I actually think Q is irrelevant. But it doesn't matter what I think, because what's going to happen is going to happen. He's either going to be right or he's going to be wrong. And really, it doesn't matter if there's a Q army. It doesn't matter that there's people that believe in Q. It wouldn't matter if they didn't believe in Q. Nothing is changing as a result of what people sitting around are thinking. I would actually think, as I mentioned, if more people think Q is real, they're less likely to put pressure on anybody or be really mad about anything if they think it's all going according to plan. Then you just sit back, you sip your beers, and you watch your Q YouTube channels and think you know what's going on, and you're comfortable everything will work out. All right. I am cheerleading Lewis, says Aquaculture. All right. We in the bleacher seats. Okay, what else we got? Mechanic says, I don't think Roger Stone is Q. Joking, right? Oh, by the way, Roger Stone was asked earlier today, just before I got on, I think Dianne Feinstein. She's looking for him to testify or to hand over documents, and he pled the fifth, which I think is smart. What is he got to... What is it? Why? Who is he that he needs to go to Congress? They have to accuse him. Someone has to accuse him or something. All right. De La Ville. Trump has declassified FISA documents. Preparing public for contents when they are released may be the reason he's doing this. Yes. He also got them all nervous because he said he would release them, and then he didn't. making them think, oh, he's serious. He would release them. So he is holding it over their heads like Damocles' sword. Here's your Greek culture reference. All right. Process crimes are small potatoes besides POTUS can grant pardons. So that's correct. But they're also going after Trump. State attorney generals are going after Trump for the Trump Foundation. It just shows the whole thing is politics. Philip Quinn, 100% agree, especially Jerome Corsi. Ann Holland, mainstream media sounds like Truth Seeker 6 years ago. Max Strong, yes, Stone, Corsi are loyal to Trump. Unfortunately, they are part of a handful. And unfortunately, they're not major players. Jerome Corsi's just a guy. I mean, he doesn't have any positions. He's like Mark Dice. I mean, he's just a guy who writes stuff. He sells books, but he's not involved in anything. For them to go after him is, I think it's pathetic. I mean, he's an author. Bill Clinton. All right, the Uni Party. Yep. All right, we got a lot here. Let's see. I can't go through all the comments because there's too many of them. Oh, you guys are talking about forming your own parties here. All right. Ann Holloman. We need a new political system based on Greek philosophy. This is Max Strong. Roman statecraft, German engineering, maybe a little religion of Western civilization is to survive. Critically analyze the plan with critical thinking. But thanks for everything. I appreciate the work. And the accents. Ha ha ha. Lewis is great at analyzing and collecting the dots, says Mechanic. Thanks, Smaulgld. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for... well, by the way, if you want stocking stuffers. Stocking stuffers are very important. And you can get them from the Smaulgld store. You can get your game-changing erasers. They're good for kids. You stick them in the stockings from Santa Claus. This one is great for yourself. You put this as a game changer Smaulgld fridge magnet that doubles as a bottle opener. For those of you who drink craft beers, not even craft beer, Sam Adams, and Sam Adams isn't that expensive. You can get them at Costco or whatever for like $1 a bottle. But there you go. Smaulgld magnet. It's a nice stocking stuffer. These are great for you cryptocurrency enthusiasts. These are Bitcoin 9995 silver rounds. And you can get them in Litecoin, Ethereum. This is the Ethereum one. They've got a nice backing on them as well. I'll show you the back. This is in code we trust. There you go. These are available from Golden Eagle Coin. I'll give you the links in a second. Just hang on. Let me show you the Litecoin one. And I'll give you the link to the Smaulgld store. So you can get your Christmas shopping done. You can get Smaulgld products. You can even put these coins in a Smaulgld mug. And there's your Litecoin. And I think there's also Smaulgld pens, erasers, as we've mentioned, obviously mugs, corkscrew. You can get a Smaulgld corkscrew as well. Nice looking hat there. So there's all your stuff. If you just hold on a minute, I will give you the link for the Litecoin rounds. Here you go. You might want to check those out. They make a great gift for people who are into cryptocurrencies. There's your Bitcoin rounds. I'll send you that. And then I'll give you the link to the... If you want anything, go to the smaulgld.com is the easiest place to find all the links. There's also coffee you can buy there. And Smaulgld gets a small commission. That's how we support this site. You know, we don't have as many. We have very loyal listeners, very loyal patrons. Thank you very much for the Smaulgld patrons. We don't have the mega audience. We have a very small audience and a very devoted audience and a very switched on audience. But so you got to buy more stuff because I do have the, let's see, let me give you the Smaulgld store, and that should do it for the pitching I saved it all to the end. No mention of mugs, just analysis. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. And we'll see you again tomorrow night. There is stationery, Matt, at the Smaulgld store. They have stationery as well, yes. Coffee holder. You like the cap? Yep. All right, guys. I want to thank you for your comments and for your support, and we'll see you tomorrow night.